G'day guys, my name is Michael and I am the DeadAussieGamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing tabletop role-playing games. Today we are going to be answering a question from our Discord channel submitted by Storm, and she asks, how do you make a vertical dungeon and how do you not kill your players with it? Now this is a great question, and first of all I want to say a vertical dungeon and a regular dungeon aren't too dissimilar. I believe that there are regular dungeons, which many people consider to be single floor dungeons, whereas vertical dungeons are ones that either ascend or descend through multiple layers. This could be a castle, this could be a tower, this could be a pit. All of these things kind of make up the idea of a vertical dungeon. Now, there are so many different ways you can handle this kind of encounter or this kind of game set. Many people have problems with dungeons, believing that they are very grindy, very tricky to kind of get into. But a vertical dungeon presents you with a great opportunity. An opportunity to build on a strong, powerful narrative that bears the signs of a great symbolic adventure. Unlike a regular dungeon, in which you've just got your flat layer, a vertical dungeon can represent the ascension to power or the descent into madness and hell. All of these things can happen, and you can watch almost as a dungeon evolves as you explore it more. Let me give you an example. You arrive at a large desert. You see a pyramid sticking out of the ground. It is no more than, say, a foot off the ground. The sands whip around you, and it could very easily be covered. This tiny pyramidic structure begins to have sand blown away as it falls from the sides of the yellow stone that makes its peak. You see an entrance. It bears some strange glyph that you lay your hand upon. Magic energy swirls around you, and you are suddenly cast into a large, strange room surrounded by all these buttons. This is a very great symbolism of being at the tip of the iceberg, the top of the pyramid. It being below the sands level means that you understand that as you go through this dungeon, as you make your way into it, you're going to be so far, so deep into the dirt. I mean, just consider that visual for the moment. Imagine being so far underground that if something were to happen to you, there is no help. The slightest change in the sandstorm above could bury the entrance forever, and what's to say you would ever find your way home? These things are where a vertical dungeon has a lot more narrative bones, I think, than a horizontal one. So how do we build one? How do we make a vertical dungeon? Well, firstly, we need a good structure, okay? You need to remember that a dungeon is designed for your players to navigate it. Don't get into the habit of saying, there is a door, it is locked, it is a DC 30. Okay, cool, fantastic, none of us made it. Well, I guess you can go home now. Yeah, avoid these kinds of things. Always make sure that your players at least have one option that doesn't require a skill or an ability or something like that. Well, even if it's just, yeah, you can break down the door. That's fine as well. As long as it doesn't, sort of put a halt to them, a vertical dungeon is a very interesting and engaging game based on the structure that you build. If you build a very flim-flammy structure, if it's just like, yeah, okay, just go through the dungeon, there's a flight of stairs somewhere, yeah, you go down it, then you have a regular dungeon. And, yeah, there's some elevation to it, but you're not really taking advantage of it, right? To take advantage of elevation, you want to do something like this. Okay, now this is the Veil of Frozen Tears, and it's from the, what's it called? The Witch War Legacy, a very short module for the Pathfinder role-playing game that is a follow-on to the Reign of Winter adventure path. Now this is a great example of a vertical dungeon that gives you just so much dynamic, right? Let's move aside from the cold, frigid ice. The fact that it's built into the side of a frozen waterfall. The idea of this slushy-like liquid water that seems to be working its way in. The deeper that they go towards the source or the mouth of the river, the thicker this cold ice becomes. All of these factors can play a major part in the challenges your players face in that dungeon. I love the idea of this. I love the idea that that is what makes it unique to the dungeon. How do you navigate it? Well, you'll need ice shoes, you'll need ice picks, you'll need the ability to tie yourselves off. And what happens if you get into a fight while you are trying to climb up this sheer icy wall? All right, well, maybe we should carry these the climbing picks and then make sure that we're fastened super tight, and then have some ranged weapons to make sure that we can fend for ourselves as we begin our climb. All these things are just great ways to be able to navigate your vertical dungeon. As well as the challenges you can make. Again, you can always do things like have, monsters with ice glide flowing through the ice as well to create an extra sense of challenge and danger. You could have areas that are caved in so they cannot proceed any further. All these challenges you'll find rarely in your in your horizontal dungeon, but you'll find very common in your vertical one. All right, so this is an example of, just a standard one. I do like this one. This one's a great one. Here is another one. This one's great because it brings up the second thing. After structure, you want to look at your navigation, okay? The navigation of your dungeon is super important because, again, it is all about your players being able to get through and experience it. With a vertical dungeon, you need to either be able to ascend or descend through your own skill. This could be through a climb check. This could be because your character can fly. It could be because you have pet griffins and you all ride them. Or it could be, like in this map of the Red Redoubt of Karamos, elevators that you actually take, being able to move up and down these chutes through these kind of red-stained death trap hallways. Now this map here is actually, again, another Pathfinder setting one, and it comes from the Dungeons of Galarian book. The PDF is absolutely fantastic, and if you are looking at delving into virtual dungeons, I highly recommend picking up the PDF. It's just been a great source of inspiration. Even though they're very setting-specific locations, you get places that reign very familiar. Like Hollow Mountain, for example, is another great one, but, I digress. So being able to navigate your vertical dungeon, super important. How do your players get up? How do your players get down? Where do they build that? Do you have elevators that are run by pulley and string? Do they need to find and unlock these grav keys that allow them to be able to walk through invisible bridges that negate their gravity and allow them to be able to make their way almost as if they are flying or levitating through the air? Do they perhaps have a network of portals that lead them up and down? These are the questions you need to ask for your next step. Now, the last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you fill your dungeon with stuff that is unique to a vertical dungeon and not just your stock standard things. Yeah, cool, have a minotaur. They're great. Orcs, bugbears, gelatinous cubes. These are things that people have seen before. Vertical dungeons are ones that you can create a whole new series of challenges simply because of the fact that there are those multiple layers. This map here is Gallowspire, another Pathfinder one, again from Dungeons of Galarian. This was absolutely fantastic because, as you can see, there is a intricate network of leveled dungeons below the Gallowspire itself. Now, throw in, say, for example, a large purple worm. Something digging through the ground. Not something necessarily your players have to defeat, but something that can create new tunnels, new networks, new places for them to explore. Things that can be collapsed from the movement of this giant creature. You could even have areas that are designed to be illusionary areas. Walls that are sealed off because someone has cast a silent wall and have deviated your entire group to go down an even worse path than the one that they were heading towards. All of these challenges, all of these things are how you can really make a vertical dungeon really unique. Now, flying creatures, burrowing creatures, these are the ways you want to kind of look at. But another thing you can really get a lot of joy out of, especially as a GM running a vertical dungeon, is multi-tiered puzzle boxes, okay? So, as you can see in the dungeon behind me, you can see that there's like 6 or 7 layers and they all go to different places. And the way you navigate it is through magical means. You find an item, you be able to do this, you can do that, you can you know, do a whole bunch of different things. Sorry, I apologize. That was very unprofessional. So one thing you could really look at doing is having tangible changes to the structure of your vertical dungeon on different levels. Let me give you an example. There is a elevator shaft leading straight down into the dungeon. If you use the red key and you activate the lift, it takes you to floor 5. On floor 5, you have all these challenges and these abilities, and several rooms you cannot get into without a blue key. But because you have the red key, you now have access to the room that gives you the yellow key. Returning back to the elevator, you use the yellow key, which takes you to floor 2. And floor 2, you have these whole bunch of different things, and because you have the red key and the yellow key, you can use them in order to unlock the orange room. And when you go into the orange, you kind of get where I'm going with this. As the structure and the unlockable abilities of the different levels of the dungeon begin to evolve, you no longer need to keep a linear story for your dungeon. Your dungeon can have those multi-layers where they're going up and down and back and forth and left and right, and it creates this sense of disorientation that you will not find in a single layer dungeon. So those kind of puzzles are fantastic, especially if you got the right mindset to be able to do something like, say, clockwork gears that rotate the rooms so that different pathways connect at different times of day, different puzzles being solved. I mean, the mind just strains to try and consider so many different things. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that covers our design element of it. How do we avoid getting killed when we are actually rummaging around through a vertical dungeon? Remember, height and falling are important things to avoid. Rope is your best friend. I've always said that it is never a bad idea to pick up a rod of immovability or an immovable rod, depending on, you know, what system you're using. And of course, if you've got potions of featherfall or some other means of being able to catch yourself should you slip and take a very large tumble down a mine shaft or off the edge of a cliff, you know, these little things definitely help. The last thing I'd probably suggest, if you do have the means to do so, always make sure that your strongest climbers, right, are always at the top and the bottom of the group. Always keep your weakest members in the middle. Don't sort of put them on the end and say, okay, well, they fall and then they're gone. If they're in the middle and they fall, that means they go past several other people before they end up dying, and hopefully you'll get words escaping me, a saving throw to be able to reach out and grab them before they plummet to their death. That's, you know, kind of my 2 cents on what you can do to try and improve your survivability in a vertical dungeon. Alright guys, so thank you so much for joining us. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Some other encounters that I'd probably use, again, if you're using flying creatures, griffins are fantastic. Burrowing creatures, again, the purple worm, if you are really kind of cheeky, you can always go for the dire mole. I've actually had dire moles in my games before, and they're really funny. Because they're the ones with the little star noses, and people thought that there were these tentacle monsters coming at them, and they found out it was a mole. It was, yeah, I laughed. Anyway, yes, so yeah, these things are great, and I hope that this video has helped you. And of course, Storm, thank you so much for your suggestion. If you want to, please leave a comment below. Let us know, how do you guys find vertical dungeons? Do you find them easy? Do you find them fun? Do you find them a bit grindy? Just leave a comment and we'll have a bit of a chat about it. If you have your own questions, then please head on over to our Discord channel. The link will be in the description below, and ask us your questions, because that's literally all I do. As I sit around, wait for people to ask me questions and make videos. So there's that. If you want, head on over to our Facebook page. We do articles there. We share memes. We, you know, just have a bit of fun. And of course, if you want to help support DeadAussieGamer, then head on over to our Patreon page. The link will be in the description below. I think we go from like a $1 tier, which is a very big thank you, all the way through to a $40 tier where you actually get to play a game which I will be running for you. I think at the moment we're playing The Price of Greed, which is a $40 Patreon, and yeah, we play a weekly game, and that's been a lot of fun. So, without any further ado, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, and until we meet again, of course, game hard or die trying. Have a good one, guys.